Okay, it's Sunday, which means against my better judgment, it's time to go to Reddit and see what we can find in this hive of scum and villainy. First off, GM aim/flick tip, and the gist of it is, it's a lot easier to hit a man if when you flick to the person, you then make a small adjustment afterwards if you have the time to do so. Which, yeah, turns out it's really hard to just, like, flick your mouse across the screen and land exactly on someone's head, so there does tend to be a small adjustment. But, hey, if you're really good, you'll just flick to the man's head, I suppose. 354 SR and 42 accuracy gain in 1 month intensive training. Started a Grandmaster journey a month ago. We'll close that right now. Important message to anyone that plays Reinhardt. Watch Overwatch League. If one team grabs another team and that team has Shadow ready, the Reinhardt on the team that used grab will not start swinging, especially if he has his own Shadow ready. He will hold his shield to block the counter shatter. Do this in games. If you have a bad Reinhardt in Goats vs. Goat, you will literally lose every time you use grab, because he stops thinking and starts swinging. Yeah, it doesn't tend to always be that clean in actual Overwatch games, because if you're playing Reinhardt and you get stuck in a Graviton, I usually don't advise you to use Earth Shatter unless you have a really sick situation lined up in front of you, because in actual, like, games outside of the Overwatch League, people tend to be coming at you from about 1,000 different directions. So it tends to be hard to actually get, like, a good counter Earth Shatter on the enemy team if you're in the Graviton. It happens, you know, doubtlessly, there are times where you can just Earth Shatter the enemy team and stop that Graviton dead, but those tend to be the exception more than the rule in Overwatch with the way it actually, like, goes in actual games on competitive. Because Overwatch League is a slightly different environment, it turns out. As a Lucio main, what should my main focus be during games? Since Lucio has a passive heal as long as your team are within range and have a sight line to you, they get healed. You don't need to pay as much attention to healing as with other healers, so aside from keeping your team within your aura and switching to heal when needed, what should I be focusing on? What should you be focusing on as Lucio? You should be in the speed boost as much as physically possible, so you do actually need to pay attention to healing still, because you need a reason to change to the healing aura, not vice versa. Try and, basically try and, like, get good at using Lucio's movement, because I'll watch a lot of Lucio players who will just play, like, completely on the ground, like, you'll watch them just walking around the map in the healing aura, just, like, walking with their teammates. I'm like, you're not really getting full value out of Lucio right there, are you? So, focus on, like, trying to actually use Lucio's movement as much as possible, wall ride all the time. Not actually all the time, but wall ride a fucking lot. And, you know, hop around the place, make it hard. You know, try and, like, use Lucio's movement. You want to be playing Lucio, and that means, like, using his movement abilities as much as you can. And, other than that, try and get good at timing Sound Barrier, either with an engage or to stop an enemy engage, because Sound Barrier has a slight learning curve on it compared to Transcendence, because Transcendence, you just push the button and it's gone, right? Lucio, you kind of have to actually time it, because it's got a very finite window of actually being available. And if you're gonna use it to counter the enemy team's aggression, you need to actually, like, time it properly, because you don't just click the button and it goes. You have to actually, like, break it down. But I would say the big thing with most Lucio players is they just aren't using his movement as much as they could be, and it makes them just less effective and easier to kill. If you watch, like, a high-level Lucio, they're bouncing all over the fucking place. They're crazy. What stats should I be looking for on tank, damage, and support? Should I rely on my teammates in Bronze and Silver? What rank should I start relying on my teammates? You should start... I think you can start relying on your teammates around Gold. Some people will say ridiculous things, like you can't rely on your teammates until Masters or some shit. You can rely on your teammates to be decently okay in Gold. Will they be great? No, they'll still, of course, be bad, but we're all bad. You can actually start to rely on them to actually, like, play properly in Gold. Will they be very good at teamwork and all that? Probably not. But you can assume that if somebody's picked Mercy, they probably at least know how to play Mercy at that point. So you can start relying on them around gold. You should not rely on them in bronze and silver. No, sir. And I'm of the opinion the only stat worth tracking on any character is deaths. Because that's a completely impartial metric right there. Less deaths are better. And that's just an unequivocal statement. Less dying is better. Whereas the other stats can lie to you sometimes. So you have to actually, like, think about those game to game. But deaths, it's just like, you died less. That's an improvement. Because, like, we say accuracy, right? The one people tend to focus on the most. Accuracy can be very deceptive to you based on the game. Because if we imagine, right, imagine we're playing McCree, Widowmaker, Soldier, an accuracy-based hero, right? If we're playing against goats, then suddenly having like a 60% accuracy is actually not all that impressive, even though you'd consider that good most of the time, because the enemy team is actually really easy to hit in goats. So 60% becomes more along the lines of what you'd expect if you're playing against like a lot of tanks, right? Whereas if you're playing a Soldier, Ashe, Widow against a team that is like 5 DPS, and it's like Tracer, Genji, Sombra, you know, a bunch of hard-to-hit people, basically, then suddenly an accuracy of 40%, which you'd normally consider to be, like, not great, you know? Acceptable, but not great. Suddenly it actually becomes pretty good, because you're playing against a bunch of people that are very hard to hit. So suddenly, lower accuracy, you know, higher accuracy is still better, but it kind of adjusts what you'd expect the accuracy to be, right? Like, so it can lie to you. You have to think about some of these stats, like, game by game, like, alright, so I've got, like, 60% accuracy, but let's be real here. How much of that was me hitting a shield, you know? Things like that. But if you died less, that's good. Dying less is just good. So that's the only stat I personally worry about. Everything else you kind of have to worry about, like, on a game-by-game basis. Quick PSA to all players, but especially ones 2,550 and below. How very specific. Not just below plat, no. But also at, like, the very, very bottom of plat. To all players who are looking to improve, but are tired of ranked, there is a place for you. Jane, one of the coaches of Dallas Fuel runs Pugs in this Elo Hell Discord. Well, hey, there you go, I guess. It's Saturday, beginner Pug. Hey, there you go. Go learn, I guess, if you're interested in doing that. Help me, please. I'm hopeless. How do I even climb or improve anymore? I can't climb out of Elo Hell to be exact. The Elo Bronze. Of course, that's always the Elo Hell. I'm not a good player, I know. I feel like I belong in Silver. How did I get stuck in Bronze? I placed 1407 in Season 11 when I started playing. I played while I was still learning the game. Dropped to 510, climbed back to 690. Season 13, I placed at 799, climbed to 871, 644. Play on a very bad laptop, averaging 18 FPS. Oof. That's bad. The current season comes, I win all of my placements, I get placed. Yeah, that's about right. I climbed on a crazy win streak to 969. Nice. I then got my PC, and I went on from playing 18 FPS to 144 Hz. Wow, that's a dramatic improvement right there, isn't it? My play was immediately better, I got way more kills. I then keep losing, and I'm down to 867. I'm absolutely hopeless, I don't know how to climb anymore. Mechanically, I'm not the best, but I'm moderate. I flex a lot. Doesn't really work unless you rarely get a decent team comp. Yeah, this is why I really don't advise, like, flexing a lot of the time, because you're, like, sacrificing your own performance to, try and make other people be better, basically, which is, can have some pretty mixed results, you know? So I always say focus on a couple of heroes rather than flexing all the time. And I don't mean just, like, still just, like, insta-lock fucking Genji every single game, right? Like, yeah, you know, you're gonna have to go to the other roles every now and then, but, like, try and focus on, like, 1 or 2 heroes in each role, and you'll have more consistent results. I always try to be positive in games, but there's rarely anyone in voice chat or team chat besides people saying 222. That doesn't work either, as 222 isn't holy. Plenty of games have been won by 4 DPS, 1 healer, and 4 tanks. I've seen 5 DPS and 1 healer win a lot of the time, to be honest with you. I try not to die so that I'll not feed. I don't have a mic, as I have built a desktop, and I don't have a splitter. So, this is, not, like, this is just one of those, like, very vague oh, no, that's not right, very vague posts that's, kind of hard to actually say anything about, so let's look at the stats over here. I don't want to show you someone's stats, really, just without permission, you know, so we'll look over here. That's not really very helpful. Eliminations per life, that can be helpful. They're all kinda low. Basically, like, a break even or slightly better than KDA on most people, or like eliminations per life. So ED, I guess, technically, is only slightly better than positive, slightly better than neutral a lot of the time, which isn't great. Eliminations average per 10 minutes. Symmetra's are way higher than everybody else, so either this person's a god at Symmetra, or they just haven't played many games as Symmetra. Junkrat seems to be the best on that, but without having knowing the time played, it doesn't necessarily help. Deaths average per 10 minutes. This is pretty high. All of these deaths per 10 minutes are pretty high. Win percentage. Okay. Eliminations per life. Oh, this is the other... Oh, this is going back to the previous season. I see. Oh, no, it's last season. Symmetra was the same thing, so maybe. Is this going back again? No, this is season 13. Have we been going up this whole time? Yes, we're going up. So let's go to the most recent season of the pictures. Oh my god, there's so many pictures in here. Okay, current competitive season. We got 100% win ratio on McCree, so I have a suspicion that all of these win percentages are, like, really positive. Because it doesn't show, like, all of them, but, like, it doesn't show every hero on the list, obviously, because you need to scroll to see all the heroes, but, like, every hero on this, that we can see on this picture, has a positive win ratio. Eliminations per life. Oh, they're better. They're a lot better this season. Yeah, these are a lot better, actually, now. Now they're, like, generally double. Eliminations per 10 minutes. That's also a dramatic improvement. Oh, 31 per 10 minutes on Torbjorn. I wonder how many games of Torbjorn we've played. And deaths per 10 minutes. The deaths per 10 minutes is still pretty high. Not as high. So, based off of these stats, it pretty much looks like we die a lot, but other than that, there isn't that much to pull out of them, really. Like, everything I can see on the win percentage is positive, so... You know. Yeah. And it's hard to say without, like, actually watching the person play, obviously, but... Based off of just those stat screens a lot, it looks like needing to cut down on deaths, because the deaths per 10 minutes was pretty high. But, you know, if you can't see the person play, it tends to be hard to say. Guidance Symmetra plus tech, plus Symmetra TP spots. Hey, so let's just, like, look at the person's YouTube, right? So... Supreme KOTOR. There you go. Go peep Supreme KOTOR, I suppose, if you're interested in Symmetra. Improving. Is playing tryhard free-for-all good for improvement? As a bronze, I played there. And I got half destroyed by GMs, masters, and just generally high EO players. Is this good for improving? Well, it's generally the free-for-all is going to be generally good for improving mechanical play, if that's just what you're looking for, because it's like all fighting all the time, basically. people will not move exactly the same as they would in an actual game, so it's not 100% like convertible skill set, but generally you'll be doing a lot of fighting, so if you're just looking for mechanical improvement, free-for-all tends to be good for that, but that's about it, really. If your aim is bad, you might be 210s. It's about 3 AM here, and I hopped on Overwatch for shits and giggles. My chair was sunken as low as it could go, and I didn't care to raise it where I normally have it. After a few quick games, I noticed I was much more accurate than usual. I felt good, and I wasn't overthinking my movements. Yeah, being anxious and stressed is gonna do that to you. Though, to be honest with you, the inverse is also true, because if you're, you know, sat down like this, you know, then you're probably not, you might be relaxed, but you're not necessarily going to be playing too well, are you, for different reasons. So, yeah, being anxious and stressed is generally going to make you worse at things, especially like aim, but you can take that too far in the opposite direction and be too relaxed as well to actually be playing well also. But, yeah, most people, because this is very common, like we will see people say that their Smurf is higher ranked than their main account is, and that's because they're not as concerned about their Smurf as they are with their main account, right? Because they're like, ah, whatever, I just made this to practice Widowmaker or whatever, and then they actually do well on that account, and then it overtakes their main account. Then they go onto their main account, and they're like, alright, I gotta win the video game, I'm gonna go and get all the SR, and then they get fucked, right? Compared to on their account where they're just trying to, like, learn how to play Widowmaker or something, right? So common. People are like, my Smurf's overtaken my main account. Yeah, it's because you're not as anxious about it. You're more relaxed. When should you use Brig's ult? I play a lot of Brig, but watching Overwatch League these last few days has made me realize I have no idea when to use her ult. I usually just use it right before a team fight to give us an extra edge, but in Overwatch League, the players seem to save it for a while, and use it at different times than I would. I've always kind of considered it a throwaway ult because it can't be used really to save your team from enemy ults, so I basically use it right when I get it. Yeah, don't do that. It also didn't really matter too much before the nerf, because even if I use it in a stupid time, the armor would last forever, but now especially now that it expires, I'd like to know its optimal usage. The absolute ideal situation to use it in is right before a team fight starts. You get the armor build up, or at least a decent amount of the armor built up, and then you start the fight and you're benefiting from the armor regen during the fight as well, right? But that's difficult to time, so usually it's just like when the fight breaks out, pretty much. And yeah, you kinda can't just use it whenever, because I was always like, you know, if I fuck it up and, like, a team fight doesn't start, it's not exactly the end of the world, because you know, armor is not a bad thing to have. But, with all the nerfs to armor, and the fact that it's not even gonna go under shields anymore if you have those, like, you gotta be a little bit more prodigious with how you use it. So, yeah, like, right before, so you can build up some of the armor, and then, like, benefit from it during the fight, but failing that, just, like, as the fight starts. Because then, like, Bridget does more healing than you think she does off of Inspire, so if you have Rally going as well, you're basically just, like, doubling, well, slightly better than doubling, because it's armor, which is better than health. You're slightly better than doubling your regen, pretty much, off Inspire, so, like, Bridget can heal, like, a lot during a team fight, especially with Rally going. It's just one of those things that's hard to, perceive exactly as the game's going on, because, like, it can be hard to notice aura effects like that, but they have a very big but subtle impact. I learned this playing League of Legends a long time ago. Slightly less so now, but one of my favorite characters in League of Legends is Sona, and Sona's thing is that she's a musician, and basically all of her abilities are based off of music. Now, the way they used to work is just that they were very long-range AoE buffs, pretty much, right? And, they were really strong. Like, they were, like, more damage, more resistances and more move speed. They all still do that, but they, like, drastically shrunk the range on the abilities, and then improved, like, the immediate effect off of those abilities. So basically they were made way more finite, but given a more obvious impact. Honestly, I preferred Sona before the changes, because, like, the auras, yeah, the auras didn't exactly... They weren't an obvious effect, but they were very strong. They were just kind of subtle. And aura effects tend to be that way. You can't necessarily tell they're doing a lot, but they tend to be doing a lot, because just doing something to your entire team around you tends to actually be a very strong effect. Just look at the bongo if you can get it to survive, right? So anyway, there you go. That's how you use Bridget Salt, pretty much. With the buffed up Reaper, any suggestions to handle him with Mei? Mild tactical, standing at the edge of his shotgun's effectiveness and spraying did not seem to work that well anymore, since his lifesteal is ridiculous. Any ideas to counter if I get caught in a 1v1 situation? I mean, if you freeze the guy, that's still not gonna be good for him, right? Like, if you freeze the guy, he'll still be upset about it. So that doesn't really necessarily change. You just have to be more aware that, like, in an extended fight, he's more likely to win now. But, like, if you freeze a guy as Mei, he's not happy about it. So, like, it should still be... That should still work for Reaper in a lot of times. Especially if, like, you get the headshot on him afterwards. You might need to, like, land another right-click afterwards to actually finish him off now. But, like... To be honest with you, like, freezing the guy is still not going to be very pleasant for him, so I still just recommend trying to freeze him, pretty much. You might need to rely a little bit more on your teammates to help finish him off, or land an extra, like, right-click or two, but, like, that's pretty much it. It's just, like, there's more margin for error now for the Reaper, pretty much. Extremely high ping in some matches, other matches are fine. So, boom, guys getting 60 ping. I don't know, is somebody doing something on your connection? Like, how many are you playing on Wi-Fi? Try plugging into the router. Did they say if they haven't plugged into the router? Yeah, I mean, try plugging it into the router. Maybe somebody's doing something on your connection? Are you watching a video at the same time? Like, you know? You'd be surprised by how effective just plugging your router into your computer is, because Wi-Fi is actually evil, and very bad. This is what I found out from playing a fighting game. Oh, there he goes again, he never shuts up about it. Turns out that your connection fluctuates a lot more than you think it does, really. If you just plug into the computer, that is completely abated. It doesn't happen anymore, because then... There's not really a lot of room for variance, to be honest with you, anymore, once it's just plugged straight in. I can't aim for shit when someone is near me. That is pretty much how it goes, to be honest with you. Because people are easier to hit with when they're close to you, but there's a certain event horizon you cross, whereas suddenly they become harder to hit once they're too close to you. I feel like I've like 200 hours on Hanzo. That's at distance. If a Genji rushes up to me or Sombra is coming after me right there in front of me, I'll absolutely lose the fight. Yeah, you know. Why can't I hit anything right there in front of me? Is this right? No, like, that's just, like... Once people get, like, right on top of you, it becomes difficult to hit them. This is why Genjis are, like, right on top of you, flipping over you and just shit like that, because you have to, like, move more of your camera to aim at them. Like, if the Genji's flipping all around you, you're having to make some pretty wild adjustments pretty quickly, right? So, for Hanzo, it's actually not so bad because he has projectiles rather than being hit scanned, so it's a little bit easier for him to hit people, because projectiles are generally more forgiving. But, yeah, like... Pretty much, you just don't want people to be right on top of you if you're playing a precision hero, because that actually does make it more difficult to hit them. Unless they're like fucking Diva or Winston. because then they're fucking huge, right? But, like, if it's like a Genji Sombra, like you say, and they're right on top of you, that is going to be harder to hit them, actually. That's, like, the expected thing. So, try to avoid letting them get right on top of you is, like, the easiest thing to do about it, really. Yeah, you know, aiming at people close to you compared to farther away from you is a skill in and of itself as well that you can improve, but that's just by playing a lot of the video games still. There's still no way to shortcut aim, right? It's just like, you have to play the game a lot. But the easiest thing is just to try and avoid letting them get, like, right on top of you. So, more of a positioning adjustment, pretty much. How do you stay warmed up? Literally. It's quite cold where I play. I have 2 space heaters running. Jesus Christ. I'm in a thick sweater and my hands still get very cold. Wearing greps would affect my glove on the map, so I don't think that's... I mean, you get fingerless gloves. That probably wouldn't make much difference if you had, like, fingerless gloves, and that would help. You can get, like, hand warmers. They're just these little, like, sachets, basically, that you, like, rub in your hands, and they keep your hands warmed up. Like, sure, when you're actually, like, playing the game, you can't exactly be rubbing the fucking hand warmer while playing the video game or anything, but, like, that can help, like, fingerless gloves, like, you know, it's pretty cold where I play, and I'm, like, thin and gaunt and have poor circulation, so, like, yeah, I notice that sometimes, but it isn't really an issue for me too much, to be honest with you, like, but I am also not in conditions where I need to have 2 space heaters and be wearing a sweater at the same time, so, you know, try fingerless gloves? You know, like, why isn't Sombra the big goats counter? She's hard to play. Sombra does counter goats. I think someone in the Overwatch League played Sombra against goats as like a counter to it. I don't exactly follow, so I might be completely entirely wrong about that, but I remember hearing something about Sombra getting picked in Overwatch League. She's hard to play. She's not an especially popular hero. She's one of those heroes where when you pick them, you're quite likely to just get E-bullied for it. And she's very hard to play well. So she's like a very high skill ceiling, skill floor hero, right? Like, you need to be like decent at Sombra to get like anything out of her at all. So it's not really something someone can just pull out of their pocket to counter something, you know? Because like, you need to be able to play Sombra to actually get anything out of her. So, she is a goats counter, she's just very hard to play well. So, that kind of stops it from happening. Because I still think Sombra is, like, the hardest hero to play in the game, by a fairly wide margin, actually. How can I adapt to the D.Va nerf? I'm a low mid-diamond player, and D.Va was one of the best heroes, or was. I finally realized that my D.Va play has really suffered since the nerf. There are many times when I'm playing where I keep clicking right-click instinctively for my matrix when it's on cooldown. I can still eat grabs and the rest of my play is fine, but I just can't seem to matrix as much stuff as I used to, and stop right-clicking right-click when it's on its own cooldown. That was a bit of a mess towards the end there, but we get the idea. What can I do to adapt to this? You need to be way more frugal with how you use defense matrix. That's the entire point of the nerf, is you can't defense matrix as much stuff as you used to. And there's more, like, there's less margin for error, basically, because defense matrix recharges really slowly. So now that you have less of it per charge, like, you got less margin for error on these things. So you just need to be, like, way more careful with what you're using defense matrix for, pretty much, which is the entire point of the nerf. You can't just kind of use it as willy-nilly as you would previously and get decent results out of it, right? You need to be, like, really conscious of how you use defense matrix, which is, I think, is good for the skill overall, because, to be honest with you, defense matrix is probably the strongest single ability in the entire game, especially for non-ultimates. So, I think it's good that you have to think about how you're going to use Defense Matrix rather than just kind of using Defense Matrix whenever, right? Defense Matrix has gone through quite a few nerfs at this point overall, after they initially buffed it. Because, God, remember when Defense Matrix was just a cooldown rather than a resource? Ooh, those were dark times right there. Just like a fucking 12-second cooldown. Oh, God. So they buffed it, made it a resource, great stuff, awesome. Since then, it's gotten a couple nerfs now, and I think that's good, because, like, Defense Matrix is very strong. I think you should have to think about how you're using it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. You just need to be, like, really conscious of what you're using Defense Matrix for. You need to be just make sure you're using it for a reason, rather than just using it whenever, and that's pretty much all you can do about it. Like, there's not exactly a huge other adaptation to make, really. You just need to be more careful with how you use Defense Matrix. Console Tracer, I wouldn't know anything about the console. Sombra, support slot or DPS? Yeah, that's it, that's all. DPS, I don't like playing Sombra as a support, never have. People have been trying to make that, they've like been trying to make that a thing for a while. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I like put her on the DPS slot. DPS trick trying to branch out into support tank, need guidance. A little background, I've had Overwatch since its release, never took it too seriously, played here and there. When I saw the videos for Ash's release, it piqued my interest and I got invested in comp. I feel pretty stuck, but I know I have much more potential hidden inside. It's a very dramatic way of phrasing it, isn't it? I'd say my best heroes are McCree and Ash, but I can adapt pretty well into any DPS depending on the situation. Anyways, I guess my biggest question is, how should I go about choosing what characters to choose, and what's the best way to go about learning how to play them? There's a couple heroes that I have in mind. Zen, Hog, and Ana. Oh, the ones that are most akin to playing a DPS. How peculiar. P.S. I'm on console, if that offends anyone. I know this was pretty broad, so if you guys have any... yeah, it's really broad, and I'm struggling to think about anything to say for it, really. Yeah, I got nothing for you, champ, right now, to be honest with you. I can't think of anything, just broadly speaking, to say about DPS going to support right now. Make sure you heal the men, pretty much. Like, you know, which is incredible advice, isn't it? God, it's amazing I'm not coaching in the OWL. Where do I find a team to play with? I wouldn't know. I've never tried. Need help branching off into a main role. Peak 3,900 tank support flex player, and I usually have around... I'm going to start an open division team next season. I feel that if I want to excel, I need to focus myself on one role. I have the most time on Ryan and Ana, and I'm not sure which route to follow. Any advice? Whichever one you want to. You know, pick support or tank, whichever one you prefer or are better at, I guess. I mean, if you're going like for an open division team, right? You want to worry more about which one you're best at, rather than which one you enjoy more, I suppose. But that's kind of it, really. Like, it's not like there's going to be any kind of empirical data here. It's whichever one you want, really. You know, maybe you've got someone on your team that's, like, really good at one or the other, so you pick the other, you know? Like, there's nothing grand to say here, to be honest with you. Why did Toronto run Moira in a dive comp? In Busan, map 5, round 3, mecha base. The Defiant rolled out of spawn with Diva, Winston, Sombra, Tracer, Lucio, and Moira. Can't work out why they were running a Moira with dive. It was against triple DPS, so I can understand why they didn't want Zen or Ana since they are too immobile. So, it pretty much has to be that, it pretty much has to be either because they wanted more healing, which is pretty much the only thing Moira has over Ana, is Moira has a lot of healing output, especially AoE, compared to Ana, right? Like, Ana has high healing output, but Moira has more healing output overall. So, it has to either be that, or they were worried about the person dying, because Moira is a lot more survivable than the other supports are, right? Like, she's very good at surviving. So it pretty much has to be either they wanted the extra healing, or they were afraid that the person was going to get killed. Because if this is round 3, they've also had time to figure things out, right? So, like, I haven't seen the game, so I don't know. But I assume they knew they were going to run triple DPS. And if the person was playing like Ana or Zen something prior and they were dying a lot, they might have decided to change to Moira to prevent that, or it was just, they're gonna run triple DPS, we want more healing, so we're gonna pick Moira because of that, because that's one of the few things she does have over anybody else. So, that pretty much, those are the only things I can think of. I don't follow the owl, so someone might have a slightly better insight than me. If you do, please leave a comment, because I'd like to know, but I'm pretty sure, like, that's all I can think of, because those are, like, the only two reasons I can see picking Moira over Ana, pretty much. But particularly with it being versus triple DPS as well, it has to be healing output or survivability. I can see no other reason. Having a hard time eating Zarya grabs recently. Will that be because you have a less time to do it in? It's pretty easy to see when it's coming, and I have a general idea of when Zarya has ulti, but if the Zarya waits a second for my DM to run out, or waits for the 2-second delay, I feel worthless. If she baits it out of you, you got baited, she played properly, right? You can't be upset if the other person does what they were supposed to do. I saw one tip about how aggressive they get, and many times try to demech you before using Grav. Any others I could use? I'm just getting downvoted with no criticism. Sorry for posting. That's shitty. This guy's asking for advice. What are you guys doing? The guy's coming asking for advice on how to do this, and and that's what's been going on? I mean, it's up 42 right now, so obviously that leveled out, but, like, that's so shitty. Like, if somebody's come to you for advice, why are you doing that? I don't understand. It's one of those that's one of those things that I hate. If somebody is coming to you, genuinely asking for advice, why are you being a dick about it? That's why, oh my god. I talked about this once before, and I'm going to complain about it again now. I'm not going to mention who it was. If you saw the video, you know, but like, I'm not going to mention who it was. But I saw this video, and it was a VoD review of a gold player, and the title of the video was like, Coward DPS, get in the fight, and then the thumbnail of the video was a picture of Soldier 76, and then in text it was like, Mommy, help me. And like, that's such a shitty thing to do. If somebody comes to you asking for advice, why are you making fun of them for it? That's such an asshole-ish thing to do. I hate that shit. Like, if you watch any of the videos I've done, I try to avoid making fun of the person, because if they've come to you asking for advice, you should not do that. You should give them advice. Why are you making fun of them? I hate that shit. Oh my god. It pissed me off so much when I saw the video. I didn't watch the video, but the last time I brought this up, someone said, yeah, the video was exactly as bad as you expected it to be. I mean, it couldn't really have been anything else, could it? Because the person obviously recorded the video and went, oh, this was the general theme of the video, so let's lean into it, I guess. Like, that's such a shitty thing to do. Don't do that. I don't even like saying, like, you did this and you did that, because, or you should do this, because that sounds so accusatory to me, right? Like, you're pointing at the guy like, you fucked up, right? It's, like, very finger-wagging to me, which is why I'm trying to say, we fucked up instead, because it just sounds less, like, insulting to me. Maybe I worry about this too much. I am from England, so we have very strict, like, etiquette socially, so, like, maybe that's just me, but god damn. I can't stand when people come looking for advice and people make fun of them for it. It makes me very angry. Anyway, so, yeah, I mean, you've got less margin for error when you're eating Zarya grabs now, because, and I mean, you know, like, if the Zarya starts playing really aggressively and then, like, doesn't use Grav and, like, baited you into using Defense Matrix, or just reacts to you using it and doesn't Grav because you're using Defense Matrix, like, the Zarya did what she was supposed to, right? Like, that's the thing, is, like, if the other person plays correctly, like, you know, you can't really be mad about it. All you can try and do is, like, adapt to that, right? Because adapting to what the enemy team and your own team are doing is an important skill in the game, right? So, what I would say is, like, if you feel like the Zarya, she isn't playing like you expect her to, like, she goes really aggressively but then doesn't graviton, because she's either baiting it out of you or trying to get you to use Defense Matrix first, trying to demech you, whatever, then you need to adapt to the way that Zarya is playing. So you need to either be more patient, or, like, play more... If she's trying to demech you, then play, like, more conservatively to make sure you don't get demeched before she can use the Graviton. If she's trying to bait it out of you a lot, then basically, like, don't fall for the bait, pretty much. Like, you know, which... It kind of sounds like aim better, right? But, like, watch the person, and if it feels like they're trying to bait Defense Matrix out of you, then just try not to use the Defense Matrix in those situations, right? You gotta adapt to the way the Zarya is playing. So if she's trying to bait you, don't get baited, pretty much. And I mean, like... It's one of those things that doesn't sound particularly helpful, but, like, that's pretty much it, right? Like, you know, there's still the tells you can go for. Like, if she's playing more aggressively, then she is probably looking to use Graviton. If she's running forward while she's reloading, she is 100% about to try and use Graviton. So, you know, there's that one. Running forward, like, she might just be bad, right? Caveat, like, if she's running forward while reloading, she might just be bad, but we should assume the other person's going to play well, right? So if she's running forward while reloading, she's probably going to use Graviton, because that's what she should be doing. So, like, you can watch for when she's being more aggressive. You know, you can watch for certain tells, because they love to, like, push into you, then look right down at the ground, and just so that there's basically no travel time on the Graviton, you know? So you can watch for, like, that movement and try to Defense Matrix her, but, like, you know, that can be hard to react to at the same time. So you pretty much just have to watch for the tells and, like, try and pay attention to what the Zarya is doing, like, and adapt to how she's playing. Either play more cautiously if she's trying to demech you so you can't get demeched as freely, or if she's trying to bait you, try and adapt to that and be less baitable. You know, that's pretty much all I got for you right there. I'm not exactly a D.Va main, so, you know, there might be something I'm missing out on, but that's pretty much all I've seen people say as well. How does the quad DPS comp work? In a few Overwatch League matches and wanted to know how it works. I would also like to know what comps it is effective against. So I can't speak to the OWL because I don't follow it. So I can't say specifically for that why it works, right? But I can say for you how it works in, like, competitive games, because I've been saying for a long time, I see the bad comp of 4 DPS, 5 DPS work a lot more often than people say it works. And the reason is basically that, like, if it turns into, like, a lot of skirmishes around the map rather than, like, team fights, it's difficult for the team with less DPS to win. Because if you think about it, that, like, there's, like, a 1v1 happening over here, a 2v2 happening over here, like a 1v2 happening over there, something like that. If your team's got more DPS on it, generally speaking, your team's got more DPS in all of these skirmishes, because you just have more DPS to go around. So you're more favored in those skirmishes, because DPS players, like, kind of like to skirmish in, like, 1v1, 2v1 people, right? Because they'll kill the fucker, right? Unless it's, like, a bad matchup one way or the other for them, but, like, generally, the DPS are pretty good at skirmishing overall. So, like, if they've got more DPS, they're more likely to win these skirmishes, pretty much. So, like, you want to avoid that. The reason it works in comp is because, like, the counter to 4 or 5 DPS is playing as a team, which is very hard to get people to do. And it's also one of those things that tilts people when it starts out. You start losing to the quad or quint DPS team, your team starts tilting. And as we know, the team that starts tilting first in Overwatch is the team that loses. In most games, to be honest with you, but, you know. And then it's also just, like, they're gonna hit you with a lot more DPS, right? If you can weather, rather, the initial impact of the enemy, of the DPS team, you're gonna be better off in the fight overall, because the DPS team has got a lot more of an explosive engage, right? Because they've just got a lot of damage. But they have poor staying power overall, so it's about, if you can bear the initial brunt of it, you've got better odds over the course of the fight, but it's hard to get people to work together. And if a DPS team, like, starts pulling the team apart from each other, because they'll probably have a lot of flankers as well, then it's can be difficult for your team to coordinate properly around it. So I can say that for you. I can't say anything about the owl specifically because I just don't follow it, but that's what I can tell you about comp, basically. Widow aim. Needs help. How do I find my best sensitivity for Widowmaker? Does it feel good? No. Yes, no. If yes, great. If no, does it feel too slow or too fast? Adjust until correct. Go to step A after completing step B, basically. That's the flow chart. Does it feel good? Yes, no. Yes, then all is... Yes, branches off. All is good. No. Is it too slow? No. Is it too fast? Yes. Adjust. Go back to step A. Does it feel good? Yes, no. And there you go. That's it. I watch other Widows clicking steady and just... Their aim seems so steady and smooth, just quick short flicks, whereas mine seems erratic and jumpy. Chill, as we've established a couple times already in this video. Chill. Just try and be calm. And I have a hard time finding balance between scoped and unscoped. Widow doesn't have much of a setting other than scoped. Like, unscoped is if you're, like, getting attacked by somebody point blank, right? But even then, scoped might be better. Like, depending on, like, it's a range thing. If they're right on top of you, it's obviously gonna be bad, because you're, like, you're peering into the atoms of the couch behind them, and it's hard to hit them, right? But, like, if it's, like, mid-range, or close mid-range, then it might still be better to use the scope on them, because the machine gun's trash. Like, the machine gun is bad. It's, like, self-defense, and you want to be scoped other times, basically. I'm not sure if my settings are too low, too high. If you're not sure one way or the other, it's probably too high. Because that tends to be the case. Usually a lower setting is better. You want to, well, this is not so much the case for Widow. You want to be able to do like a 180 comfortably, right? Like you don't want to have to pick up your mouse multiple times to turn around. But then Widow also has scoped versus unscoped sensitivity at the same time, right? You don't need to be able to do a 180 while you're scoped, right? You can unscope for that procedure. So it's a little different for Widow, but generally you want it to be lower. But you do still want to be able to like turn around comfortably, but you don't need to worry about doing a 180 while scoped, unless you're going for sick 360 no scopes, I suppose, in which case you'll want it decently high, right? But otherwise, if you're not sure one way or the other, try lowering it. I know that I'm not a great Widow, best advice is just practice makes perfect, but before I sink more time into it, I want to make sure my sensitivity is appropriate. Just play the game. Does it feel good one way or the other? And if it doesn't feel good, adjust it. If you're not sure, try lowering it. And give it a few games. Like, don't just, like, play one game and go, I didn't like that. Like, try playing a couple of games to see if it evens out. Because you'll also need to adjust to the change in sensitivity, right? So, like, give it a few games. Like, maybe give it a day or two, right? Try. See if it feels wonky one way or the other. Try and, like, troubleshoot the problem. Do I feel like I'm overshooting my shot or undershooting, right? Like, try and troubleshoot it. Think about what the error is, and then adjust it accordingly, pretty much. Also, don't worry about getting the headshots, especially while you're learning. Worry about getting body shots first, and then try to improve from there. Because honestly, I'd rather you hit every single shot and kill the guy slower than hit the guy like 30% of the time and kill them kill them in one shot, right? I'd rather you hit the guy consistently. So, like, worry about that first. Don't worry about the headshots, especially while you're learning. And even then, it doesn't really matter that much, to be honest with you. As long as you can consistently hit a squishy target, that's good enough a lot of the time. To all high-ranked Roadhog mains, what is the correct way to play with him so you're maximizing his effectiveness without feeding the enemy team? So he's very easy to feed the enemy team alt charge by just existing. So to that, I ask, what do I do in order to play Roadhog in the most effective, useful manner while minimizing the amount of feeding to the enemy team? Play around your shield or cover. And that's it. You try to avoid, like, walking out in open space as much as possible, pretty much. Because that's when, like, the Roadhogs will feed alt charge. They'll, like, run up really far to try and, like, hook someone, and they'll hook the guy, but they've run so far up to do that they took this huge chunk of damage, and then they gotta retreat while still taking the damage, right? Maybe like taking a breather so it's mitigated on the way back, but like, you play around a corner, or your tank it's kind of that simple. You just avoid being in open space as much as possible. You play around cover in your tank. And that's it. It truly, it's like a very benign answer, but the answer truly is play around cover as much as possible. You can't always play around cover, like, or shield. Sometimes the fights are that way, where, like, it gets kind of complicated, but just try and think, like, am I stood by a shield? Yes, no. If I'm not stood by a shield, am I stood by a wall I can use as cover? Yes, no. If no, try and get closer to one of those two things. And that's just generally good positioning advice in general. Like, play around a shield or cover. Like, that's not a Roadhog specific thing, but, like, that's the best way to minimize feeding the enemy team ult charge. How do I use Reaper's ultimate? So I've been playing the game for a bit, and I don't know how to use Reaper's ultimate. Either I die immediately, I get stunned, or everyone survives the ultimate, and the enemy team all gangs up on me. So, don't use it. Also, what does GOATS mean? I've heard people talk about it. GOATS is basically 3 tank, 3 healers. It's a specific combination of those things, really, but to me, if I see 3 tank, 3 healers, it's GOATS, basically. That's the long and short of it. It is a specific combo, but, like, fuck you. It's 3 tanks, 3 healers. So, with Reaper, don't try and use it to get, like, a team wipe, because that just doesn't really work anymore. It used to be a lot easier to do, especially when there was less crowd control in the game, but it doesn't work so much now, and when people were bad at the game, also. It doesn't work so much now. If you're gonna go for, like, the big team wipe play, you really want to use it from above the enemy team. Like, you want to, like, shadow step to a high ground, wait for them to do something under you, and then jump down on them spinning. And then, like, they'll be like, what the fuck? And you'll, like, kill a couple of people before they interrupt you, or they won't interrupt you and you'll kill a bunch of people. So, like, if you're gonna go for the team play, that's pretty much what you want to do. Otherwise, honestly, don't use it to kill, try and go for a team wipe. Just use it to, like, make sure you kill, like, 1 or 2 people, pretty much. Because if you, like, get, like, suppose the enemy team is playing, like, Mercy Ana, right? Maybe Mercy Ana's a little... Alright, we'll still go Mercy Ana, because you're fairly likely to see that one. You see, like, Mercy or, like, Ana Moira, something like that, right? Ana Zen. In which case, like, you can just get behind the supports, maybe take a shot or 2 into Zen or something like that, whatever. But, like, if you just come up behind the supports and press Q, you'll probably kill the supports. Like, yeah, you didn't get you didn't get, like, the fucking sextuple kill play of the game kill streak with it or anything, but, like, you killed both their supports. You won the fight because you killed both their supports. Not always, but if you killed both of their supports, you should win the team fight, 9 times out of 10. So, like, don't be afraid to just use it to kill a couple of people. It doesn't have to just be the supports either. You find, like, the DPS. You find, like, a support and a DPS, or both the DPS, and you can just spin to kill them. Do that! And just kill those fuckers. Now, if they have crowd control on them, so if it's a McCree, Ana, Bridget, Roadhog nearby, you need to play around the fact that they have crowd control, so you need to either wait until they're distracted, or wait until you see them use those cooldowns and then go for it, because if you start spinning and they haven't used those cooldowns yet, they'll use them on you, and then your Death Blossom will have done nothing. So don't go for, like, the 1v6 kill with it. That almost never works. So try and use it to, like, just secure kills on, like basically guarantee a couple kills on people, and that's a good use of Reaper's ultimate. If you choose your ultimate to quickly kill 1 or 2 people when the fight starts, that's, like, a fine use of an ultimate, honestly. Especially one like Reaper's, which is more difficult to use, right? Like, Dragon Blade, ideally you routinely kill, like, 3 or 4 people with that, right? Because that's just the way that ultimate is. Death Blossom tends to not be that way unless you can combo it with, like, Earth Shatter, Nano Boost, Graviton, not even necessarily Graviton, you know. If you can combo it with something, great. Or if you can combo it with, like your Rosaria can bubble you when you start using Death Blossom, that's really good. That's sick if you can get that going. But that'll depend on the game. So, don't go for the big 1v6 play. If you're going to use it in a team fight, try to drop down on them from high ground so they're more caught unawares with it. Or, like, wait for your team to engage a fight, and then, like, when the fight's getting hectic, basically start spinning in the middle of them. But otherwise, try and, like, get on their supports or their DPS and then just spin on those guys. You kill, like, 2 people with it, hey, that's great. That's a good use of Death Blossom. Rotation during Atlanta versus Florida. I might be overthinking this, but this seemed like a cool micro call to point out. Meso knows Emp is up, so as BQB goes for the hack onto I don't know who any of these people are. It seems like he calls for a speed boost into the right side Mega where Swoan is hiding. Because of the bubble on Dogman. Jesus Christ. Let's just watch the clip. Oh, you're not going to be able to see that. Okay, so yeah, I just rushed the guy, basically. Hey, you know, that's cool. Sure. Calls for a speed boost into the right side Mega, where Swoan is hiding. BQ couldn't find any value from the Emp and holds it. And he chases it. Okay. Now I've seen the play happen. The post has a little bit more context to it. Sure, great, awesome. Isn't teamwork cool? High goal player looking for community to learn. Hey. Well, you know, right? Don't do Reddit, it's terrible. How Overwatch should be. Started the match with 5 DPS, 1 tank, nobody complained. Whatever, I don't care. Fluidity and reactions. Fluidity is something that has a wide range of variance across ranks in all FPS games. The higher rank a player is, the more fluid they play, not an exact indicator. This is another high-ranking critique that high-ranking streamers like XQC also pointed in VoD Reviews for lower elos. Their movements are choppy, the response times aren't all that great. I mean, you know, reactions varies a lot from person to person. I'd like to play a more fluid game, and by that I mean moving more with a purpose and meaning, that if I'm playing a main tank, I'm not standing in a choke, but actually moving fluidly, rather than I get into a choke and then I freeze. There are some tips and advice on improving this part of my game, and if it really has ties into other game skills that can be lacking. So part of it is knowing what you're trying to accomplish, true enough. Like, you need to know what you're doing, or what you're trying to do to actively work towards it, right? But, to be honest with you, and you know, this is not an answer that anybody's gonna want to hear, when you watch somebody who is really comfortable playing the game, or even just the genre of game sometimes, right? When they're really comfortable playing that hero, that game, that genre, whatever, it all looks great. They move so fluidly. One of my favorite things to do is watch really good Pharah players, because you'll watch them. They know exactly what they're gonna do. You'll watch them just like jump, concussive blast exactly where they want to go, and then just barrage and wipe the entire enemy team. And when they do it, it's just such a beautiful motion that they do, basically. Like, it looks so fluid and excellent. I love watching that kind of play. But it's hard to get there, right? And here's the thing, yes, knowing what you're trying to accomplish is great. So if you're playing a main tank, you're playing Reinhardt, you want to know what you're doing, right? You need to know, I'm trying to get them to the objective, right? That's the obvious baseline. But you have to think, how am I going to get them to the objective? Right, so then you decide which way you're going to go, and then you start working towards that. You know, you hold your shield up, you go, you move from cover to cover. Things we've talked about 1,000 times before. So you need to know what you're doing, more than just beyond get to the objective. You need to think, how do I get there? And there'll usually be several incremental steps up till that point, right? Like Hanamura, very straightforward. You don't just run straight to the objective, because going across the rock garden is fucking hard, right? So you go through the doorway on the right, inside the choke point, and then you're covered in there, so you let your shield regenerate in there if you have to. Then you go up the right-hand side, and you try to push onto the point from the side, rather than just running straight up the rock garden, because that's hard. So, you know, you need to know things like that. You want to know what you're doing, right? That's obviously part of it. But a lot of it's just being comfortable playing the game, right? I'm going to talk about a fighting game again now. Ha ha, it never shuts up about it, I know. Like, it was one of the things that was the hardest for me to do, learning how to play Dragon Ball FighterZ, was it was very hard for me to land on the ground and then immediately dash, right? This was very hard for me to do. It was very hard for me to dash in general, right? Because I wasn't used to doing the motion. So, and you got the instant air dash as well, which is fairly specific to the game, but like it is literally you jump and then dash while you're only like as barely off the ground as is physically possible to be, pretty much. And then you do that so you can cross up the other person, which is you jump from one side to the other side, so you change which way they have to be blocking. So it was very hard for me to do that for probably like 2,000 games, because this was the first fighting game I'd ever like dedicatedly tried to learn how to play. So my movement was fucking awful, right? It was choppy. I didn't know what I was trying to do, so that was an issue. I didn't know what I was trying to work towards other than punch the bad man, right? But I also just didn't know how to move. I wasn't comfortable doing the motions I needed to do to move around, because it wasn't muscle memory for me yet. Now it's no problem. Now that I've played 5,000 games, I can land on the ground and dash right after I've landed, right? I can do the instant air dash now, because it's like a very quick movement you have to do with your hand to do that. So like, I couldn't do it. I can do it now. It was a lot of work to get there, and a lot of just getting things into muscle memory and getting comfortable moving around in the space, right? And that's true for Overwatch as well. You need to get comfortable moving around the space, which is just basically being comfortable. You need to be comfortable playing an FPS game, because that's the perspective this game's from. So you need to be comfortable, like, looking around, like, processing information quickly when you look around. You need to know, like, what you're looking for, so you can, it's easier to do it, right? You're like, I know they got a Genji, so I'm gonna look at places that Genji's likely to go quickly, right? You need to be careful, you need to be used to moving around. You need to be used to, like, looking one way, moving another way, moving onto things that are behind you, you know, like... you need to be comfortable using your abilities and everything, right? Like, if you're playing, like, main tank, Reinhardt, you need to kind of get used to, like, flicking your shield up and down as much as possible. You need to get used to moving while your shield is up and while your shield is down. You need to know the layout of the maps. This is something that's, like, FPS specific. You need to know the layout of the map, because then if you know where everything is, it's a lot easier for you to move around the space, because you just know where you're going. So, like... getting more fluid gameplay is a very long, tedious, and time-consuming process, because, yeah, part of it is you need to know what you're trying to do, right? And that'll vary a lot from game to game. It's hard to give hard and set rules about that, right? But, like, the biggest part of it is getting comfortable moving in the space, comfortable controlling your own hero, and that basically means... my son's there, playing the game until everything's in muscle memory for you, pretty much. And that's really tedious and time-consuming to do. And, you know, people learn at different rates, so it might take you a really long time to get into muscle memory. Especially if you're not used to playing, like, FPS games or something like that. It might take you a really long time just to get used to, like, moving around in a three-dimensional space. So... you know, that was a really long and rambling thing, but the short version that I would have given, if I was a more concise person, is fluidity is mostly about muscle memory. So you have to work on your muscle memory, and then as your muscle memory improves, you'll get more used to moving in the space, and your gameplay will naturally become more fluid as you become comfortable navigating the space. So there you go. New to the game. Looking for tips. How many heroes should I learn? Try and focus on just a couple of heroes. What is a good ballpark? I think 6 is pretty much close to the ideal, because basically you've got 2 heroes per role, right? So you can know a main tank and an off tank, a main healer and an off healer, and then 2 DPS, basically whoever you pick. Like, whichever DPS you want to play, really. You know, if you're looking for, like, a versatile combo of them, you'll want something like McCree Genji, you know? Because they can fit into most team compositions, basically. But, like, so, like, try and just 6 is a good ballpark, but, like, focus on the ones you want to play, right? Like, decide which heroes you like, either because you like the hero, or you just love the way they play. Like, you know, pick the heroes you want to play. That's, like... People are always like, what should I play? What shouldn't I play? What's good? What's meta? Pick who you want to play. It doesn't matter. And, like, whatever reason you like the hero, pick that hero. You might just fucking love the design of the hero, right? Fucking play that hero. Go for it. Awesome. Go for that. If you love the way they play, do that. You know, focus on the ones you want to play above all else. If you enjoy, it's a video game. You should enjoy playing the heroes. But if you enjoy playing the hero, you'll also probably improve faster because you're more invested in that hero one way or the other. But 6 is a good ballpark figure because you just got 2 for each, basically. Who should I learn? Right now I'm spanning Rick and Ball and loving him. That's exactly what you should do. If you love to play that hero, play that hero. I know that he has a weird hero that won't teach transferable skills. Other heroes I'm looking into learning are May, Reinhardt, Bridget, however I'm hoping to change the list. Whatever you want to play, my dude, just do that. Basically, like, if any of you come up to me like, who should I learn? I'm gonna say whoever, right? Like, if you come to me with a slightly more specific question, like, I play XYZ, right? Like, I play DPS, I play Ashe and Soldier, right? But I'm looking to learn to play as support. I don't really care which support it is. Which support should I play? I would say Ana and Zenyatta, because they are the most transferable between the DPS you've already played, right? Because the positioning is largely the same. The aim skill will carry over between them, right? Like, so, you know, if you ask a specific question like that, you'll get a more specific answer. But if it's just like, who should I play? The answer really is just play who you want to play, one way or the other. Don't worry about who's meta and all that. You fucking love Torbjorn? You fucking play Torbjorn. You fucking play that Hammer Wizard. You do it. What is a must-watch read material to get the fundamentals of the game down? I went in blind to see if I would like the game, but I think it's time to start doing some homework. Tragically, there is not a lot of really good baseline material out there. There is a good series of videos, which is basically about how to survive as the supports, which is pretty good for baseline support levels. I don't remember the exact person that made those videos because I saw them so long ago. I can probably find them, to be honest with you, if I just type into YouTube right now. How to survive as Mercy. Because this was the video I saw. That was the first video I saw a long time ago. And there's actually, like, a lot more of them now. I've just looked, and I have seen several. Oh, this is the one I was specifically thinking of. So we'll bring it over here. I'm not going to show you the video, but I'm going to show you, like, the person behind it, so you know where to go, right? It was Life Support. Number 1, Guide to Staying Alive as Mercy by Mindfuzz. And this was a really good video. I saw this so long ago, but, like, this is, like, good fundamentals for a support. So you got that, but, like, there is tragically not a lot of good material out there for just, like, really baseline skills, like positioning, hero selection. I've got a guide about team composition. One day I'll make those other guides I was threatening to make a long time ago. I've been threatening to make one about zoning for about 3 years now, so we'll get to that one day. Yes, that is longer than Overwatch has been out. What about it? Yeah, so unfortunately there's not a lot of it. There are some really good, like, written guides that I've seen on, like, this subreddit, shockingly enough. But there's tragically not a lot for the really, like, baseline stuff. It's easy to find, like, specific stuff and, like, tech for heroes, but just, like, how do I position? It's kind of hard to come by in Overwatch, honestly. What is the standard team comp? 2 healers, a shield tank, and off tank. Doesn't have to be a shield tank. Main tank and an off tank. Winston's a main tank, even though he's not a shield tank. But the other 2 main tank... Well, Hammond can be a main tank. I don't advise you to think of him that way outside of more organized play. But the main tanks basically are Winston, Reinhardt, and Orisa. And yeah, Winston, Reinhardt and Narissa are shield tanks. Winston isn't, but he's still a main tank. Hammond can be a main tank, but it requires more specific play. One source of DPS, and then a backline shredder. How wrong am I? I mean, that's roughly true. You want really a main healer and an off healer, because the off healers bring more utility. They also have the defensive ultimates. Lucio and Zenyatta are the off healer. Well, Mercy can be an off healer now as well. But like Zenyatta and Lucio are the true traditional off healers, and they have a lot of utility attached to them, and they have the defensive ultimates and Sound Barrier and Transcendence. So you, like, one of my baselines for good team composition is having a defensive ultimate, so Transcendence or Sound Barrier, basically. So you want a main healer and an off healer. One for the healing output and the other for the utility and defensive ultimate. You want a main tank and an off tank. Same reason. Similar reason to main healer, off healer. The main tank is the one that makes space, but the off tank is the one that secures space, basically. And then DPS, it kind of doesn't really matter who the two DPS are that much, really. Like, one consistent DPS, so something like one of the hit scan heroes, like Soldier, McCree, Ashe, and then a flanker is, like, pretty decent, but, like, it kind of doesn't matter what your two DPS are, outside of something ridiculous. Like, if you got, like, Mei Torbjorn, your DPS is, like, you've got really low DPS teams, so you might have problems then, but, like, who the two DPS are doesn't really matter that much outside of, like, very extreme examples, really. But that's pretty much how it is. I don't know about the one source of DPS and then a backline shredder. I get the idea. It's like a consistent DPS and a flanker, basically. But, like, I just kind of don't think of it that way, to be honest with you. What are the main things people get wrong when they start? I know that in Dota it's not looking at the mini-map. In Smash it's rolling too much. What is the big bad habit in Overwatch? And I can try to stop early. Going in without your team, you need your team to do stuff, so you really don't want to, like, go in by yourself. Basically, people stagger themselves a lot, which you really don't want to do. So play around your team. Don't go in, like when your team is, when somebody's, like, just rule of thumb, if 2 people are dead on your team compared to the enemy team, so you're down 2 people, it's like 6v4, 5v3, something like that, you probably lost the team fight, so you should be looking to disengage or just die faster so you can regroup with your team. Because Overwatch is a very team-based game, you need your teammates to do stuff, so try to avoid getting picked off by yourself, basically, because you need your teammates to do stuff. That's, like, the biggest one. And the other one is not valuing their ultimate enough. Because ult execution is a really big skill in this game, because the ultimates, shockingly enough, are the strongest parts of the heroes, usually. Not always, like, Pharah is not, like, Barrage is not the reason to pick Pharah, you know, but generally, like, the hero's ultimate is the strongest thing about the hero. So, ult execution is really big, so people, and, you know, there's 2 ways to take that. They'll either not value their ultimate enough, or they'll overvalue it, so, like, they'll just use, like, undervaluing it, they'll just use it frivolously, kind of whenever. And not get a lot of value out of it, which you don't want to do, or they'll overvalue it, so they'll have, like, a combo ultimate, and they'll just hold it for, like, or, like, they'll have, like, Earth Shatter, right? Death Blossom we were talking about earlier, they'll hold it forever, trying to get, like, that 6-man kill with it, so they get play of the game, when if you just use it to kill, like, 1 or 2 people, like, 1 to 3 people, that's often good enough, to be honest with you. Yeah, maybe not always 1. The 1 person has to be pretty important. Like, if you use your ultimate to kill, like, the main healer, that's a good use of your ultimate. But just using it to kill, like, 1 dude, they gotta be kind of important. But you don't need to hold it for, like, 6 people. Just getting a kill on a couple of people is fine. So yeah, there you go. That's what you got for that one. Will playing D.Va help me with Roadhog? Unlikely. Having a difficult time playing Reinhardt and Winston lately, so I started playing D.Va along with Roadhog. I don't know anything about how she should be played or what to do with her. I've run out of things to learn besides trying new hero. I've tried out Orisa, didn't like her. Never tried Zarya and don't plan on trying her. I don't like playing Zarya, I try to avoid playing her as much as possible. So I picked D.Va instead, and so far I don't know what to make of her. Yet. I know I play too many heroes, but I'm trying to find the tanks I like to play. What am I supposed to be doing with D.Va? Will learning D.Va help me with Roadhog, Reinhardt, or Winston? It'll help you the most with Winston, but even then the skills don't really transfer as much as you'd think they would. Excuse me. This will leave you to have an alternative to Roadhog when he isn't an optimal choice. Other D.Va players never deal with Pharah, Widowmaker, and Ashe from Bastion. Yeah, D.Va is not good at fighting Bastion. Don't do that. You know, unless you can, like, chuck your bomb on him, that'll force him to move. But, like, just fighting Bastion, the best you can do is hold Defense Matrix over him for a little while other people kill him. So, don't... D.Va's not that good against Bastion. So, no, playing D.Va won't help you with Roadhog, because there's very little overlap in terms of the things they're trying to do, basically. What D.Va's trying to do is, D.Va's an off-tank. She's not a main tank. She used to be for a while, but not anymore. D.Va, she's... like, the main thing you're trying to do is disrupt people with Defense Matrix, because it's one of the few abilities in the game, and, like, one of the very few non-ultimate abilities in the game, that can just completely fuck up another person's ultimate, right? So, like, Grav, you can eat it, right? Like, D.Va has by far the cleanest way to deal with a Graviton in the entire game, right? Nobody else can deal with a Graviton to the, like, exact removal of it like D.Va can. So... like, Barrage is really good against, like, that. She's really good against, like, fucking up ultimates, basically. Not all of them, like, Genji, she obviously can't do very much about, other than try to, like, kill the Genji or, like, push him off the person he's killing. She can't do much about that one. But she can fuck certain ultimates up really badly. So you want to focus on that. And other than that, D.Va's really good at punishing people who are out of position, because she does a lot of burst damage. Because, like, you fly up to somebody... rockets blaring, shooting them, and then you, like, hit them with your body physically, like, shift into them, shooting at them, rockets the whole time, you punch them. Like, you basically kill a squishy target, as long as you've got, like, a decent accuracy while you're going in. So, like, you focus on, like, supporting your tanks and protecting your backline, because that's what off-tanks do as well, is that if there's a flanker back there, they're the ones that helps the backline deal with that. That's the off-tank's job, because the main tank is worried about the front line, right? The off-tank is worried more about, like, everything in between, basically. Sometimes you'll just be helping the tank, the main tank, because there's nothing else to do, really. Like, you'll just stand up with the Reinhardt, like, shooting at the other Reinhardt shield, eating fire strikes, stuff like that as it comes up. But, like, if something's happening that requires attention behind the front line, that's, like, your job to deal with as the off-tank. But, like, D.Va, you worry about eating ultimates, helping your teammates, and, like, punishing people who are out of position, or, like, doing something stupid, because, like, you do this big burst damage when you initially jump on someone. So if you see someone doing some dumb shit, or they're just too far up, you go clap that boy. And that's basically what we worry about with D.Va. But no, Roadhog and D.Va have very little in ways of transferable skills. So that playing D.Va will not help you learn how to play Roadhog. What are my first couple of shots as McCree missing when the crosshair is on point? Oh, why are? Is it because Fan the Hammer is inaccurate by nature regardless of the crosshair's position? Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not as in to McCree. Like, honestly, like, I'm not up enough on the knowledge of McCree here to tell you exactly. But yeah, it looks like basically, like, either, you know, it looks like they should have hit him, so I guess so. But to be honest with you, I am unclear on the exact workings of a lot of abilities. So I honestly, I don't know. I can't say I've ever really observed that happening when I've used Fan the Hammer. Where was I? Ah, here we go. Tips for a new competitive player. Usually just play quick play. I've been thinking about playing comp instead so I can get better. What are some tips for somebody who has never played comp before? Just have tempered expectations. Like, you're probably not gonna, like, shoot up the ranks or anything like that. People can get a real fucked up view of, like, how quickly they're gonna climb. Because they'll watch, like, streamers and, like, you know, all that, and they'll just, like, shoot up the ranks, because they're, like, really good at the game, basically. Your experience won't be like that. You will probably climb with, like, a 51% win ratio, because that's how it usually goes for people. People tend to climb with a pretty close to 50% win ratio, so just have tempered expectations on how quickly you're going to climb, because it probably won't be very fast, especially while you're learning. Climb to... Does winning games give you substantial SR until you get back to... Yeah, I've had this experience before, where I will be gaining 50 SR per win and losing, like, 2 per loss. Because your MMR hasn't adjusted, right? Because you didn't play any games. Your MMR didn't move, it's just your SR decayed down. So then the game goes, oh, there's a really big discrepancy between these two numbers, and it just tries to get them as close together again as quickly as possible. So you get way massive SR gains until you're back to roughly where you should be. For new players wanting to main tank, should I be standing between my team and the enemy team, or trying to take cover? See, that's one of those questions that's more complicated to answer than it initially seems like it is. The gist is, yes, you do want to be standing between your team and the enemy team. I'm assuming this is from the position of playing Reinhardt, basically, because he's the most straightforward main tank in the game. But you're actually talking about Winston and D.Va at the top there. So I guess we'll talk about it from the perspective of Winston, seeing as he's the main tank out of those two people. So, Winston, no, you don't stand between your team and the enemy team, because Winston's not a shield tank, he's a disruption. So you're looking to jump in on the enemy team and disrupt them. So you play around cover, and you try to find, like, the squishy targets, jump on them, harass them. Ideally, you've got other people that are going in with you, so like a D.Va or like a flanker or something like that who's going to follow you in. And you jump in, and you engage the fight. You put the bubble down on the man, in the mans. You dance in and out of the bubble, so it's harder for them to hit you. You tase them. Hopefully you kill them. That's the ideal. But Winston, he's a monkey. He uses guerrilla warfare. You jump in. You put the bubble down. You tase him for a little while. Hey, if things are looking hairy, I jump away. I come back later. I do it again. Rinse and repeat until something happens, basically. If you're playing like Reinhardt, then you still play around cover. You do stand between your team and the enemy team, but you want to think about why you're holding your shield up, because, like, you want to be blocking actually important damage that's aimed at your teammates, right? Because if it's just aimed at you, you can stand behind a wall, so you don't really want to just be standing out there protecting only yourself, because a wall can do that. So when the enemy team are, like, trying to push in, they're shooting at your teammates, then you come out and you stand between them and block for them. But otherwise, you stand around cover still. And you still try to play around cover, even if you're holding your shield up, just because it's more helpful if, like, there's a wall to get to if you need it, basically, for cover. So you still try to play around cover, even when you're between them and the enemy team. When are the best times to initiate? I know this is a really broad question, but in the absence of minion waves, creeps, I'm not yet sure how to tell good opportunities from bad. It's really hard to give set rules for that one, because there's a lot that goes into it. The easiest one, if you're playing Winston, is that you can see, like, some squishy people who are kind of off by themselves, basically, because then you can just jump on them and start harassing them. If you got Primal Rage, you can kind of brute force it, because you've got this giant 1000 health barrier to work with as well, right? So, like, you can kind of just brute force and engage if you got Primal Rage going. But, like, for Winston, like, the most straightforward times to engage will be your team's going to use ultimates now, or the enemy team's out of position, right? Basically, those are, like, the most straightforward times to engage. Like, it's an extremely hard question to answer. Especially from the perspective of someone like Winston, because there's, like, a lot more that goes into that one. Winston's got more moving parts with how he engages, because Reinhardt is just, I landed Earth Shatter, let's go, and that's basically like it. What do I do? Well, when there's not really a team fight happening, particularly as Winston. My weapons seem too short range to poke with, but just diving in seems like a quick way to get killed, unless I'm supposed to be leading the charge, and sometimes you are. I can see how Reinhardt might slowly advance on the enemy team using the shield, but with Winston I'm a bit lost. Yeah, so with Winston, especially if you're playing Winston on defense, there will be times where you're really just waiting for something to happen, and that's fine. Don't worry about that too much. Because even when you're defending, you're looking for the same things, basically. You're looking for, like, people who are off by themselves, and you're looking for, like, opportunities to jump on their back line. You're looking for your teammates using all, like, you're doing all the same things, basically. But because the enemy team's advancing into you, rather than the reverse, you just kind of have to be more patient, and there will be times where just, like, really you'll feel like you're not accomplishing anything, because you're kind of just waiting for something to happen. But Winston has nothing to poke with, so there will be times where you are just waiting for something to happen, basically, or for for an opportunity to present itself. Just try not to feel too bad about it as Winston. You will have to wait sometimes, particularly on defense, and that's fine. Sometimes you've got to wait for an opportunity. Don't worry about it that much. Just be looking for opportunities to do stuff. Keep an eye, like, make sure if your teammates need help, you're ready to help them, you know, things like that. So, like, don't worry too much about it as Winston, because he is so short range. Sometimes you will just be waiting for stuff to happen. Are there any beginner level guides to tanking I can watch read? Not that I know of offhand, other than the ones I've made, but they're honestly long, rambling, incoherent things. So, you know, I got mine. Yeah. I make videos on the internet sometimes, but other than that, I honestly don't really know of any, like, good tanking guides specifically that I've seen. You know. Well, I'll go with the old standby. You can watch Jane. He's really good, but, you know, like, guides, I haven't seen many of those. From the research, Gray and Narissa are the big 3 main tanks that I should be looking for. Of those 3, Winston is my favorite, Narissa second. Also really like D.Va, but apparently she's more of an off tank. She is an off tank, yes. And you know, that's the best I got for you, really. Right there, so there you go. How do I join a team? I wouldn't know. The hero trap of Overwatch. Worst losing streak ever. Female Masters GM supports. How do you deal with sexism, misogyny, in team chat? I'm not really equipped to answer that question, I don't think. I personally just don't engage with people, because, I'm an asshole. And, other people are also assholes, so it tends to be a stacking effect, really, but, I recommend just not joining voice chat. It's not as big of a deal as people say it is. I got the Masters and I never talked to a single human being. Why does Genji's deflect Ryan's hammer? It doesn't deflect it, it blocks it. I don't believe this was a thing when I started playing the game in closed beta. I didn't play in closed beta, so maybe not. But Genji deflecting Ryan's hammer and Bridges' flail confuses me. Why can he deflect melee attacks? It doesn't make sense to me. Goes right. He's got a sword, right? If I swing at you with a sword, and you do this with your sword, right? You know, you hold it up and stop the blow. It doesn't do any damage to you. It's not like I'm gonna hit your sword and then you're still gonna start bleeding, right? So, same concept. Like, we have to imagine that Genji's blade wouldn't just snap like a twig if it got hit by a rocket-propelled hammer, right? So it's made out of adamantium or something, right? But, like, if I swing a hammer at you, and you hold your sword up and block the hammer swing, right? You didn't get hit. So you don't take damage. Right? It's very straightforward. If you didn't physically get hit by it, it didn't hurt you. So that's why it blocks it. It doesn't deflect it. Because it's not like you bounce it back and Reinhardt takes 75 damage, right? It's literally you just block the damage. So, it's because if you block something, you blocked it. It doesn't do damage to you. Because that would suck, right? If you blocked something and then you still got like a broken arm. That'd suck. Can happen if you get hit with enough force, but I mean, if we're a fucking cyborg ninja, we probably got pretty sturdy joints, right? He's made of adamantium as well. Why not? Fuck it. What's the Marvel equivalent? Vibranium. Vibranium. Yeah, it was made of vibranium. Yeah, that's the one. That's why. So thank you very much for watching. If you did, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to answer. If you haven't already, you can join our Discord and ask questions more directly and have a conversation about them, or just shitpost with us. If for some reason you enjoyed the video and managed to get all this way through, please like the video and subscribe for more videos of middling quality in the future, and I hope you found the video helpful.